9 out of 10 mango grafts fail for the exact same reason, and it has nothing to do with your knife, your tape, or your technique. It's something most growers never even think to check. And once you know what it is, you will never lose another graft the same way again. Hit subscribe right now because this channel is dedicated to helping you grow better fruit trees, and we put out new videos every single week. Here's what's possible when you get this right. A home grower in Southern California had been failing at mango grafting for 2 full years. Tried different techniques, different tools, different timing. Nothing worked. After understanding the one core principle we're going to break down today, she grafted 6 trees in a single afternoon. 5 of those 6 took successfully. They're now producing fruit in her backyard. Same hands, same tools, completely different knowledge. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wrapped a graft, waited 2 or 3 weeks with real excitement, and then peeled back the tape only to find the scion completely brown and shriveled? Maybe it looked okay for the first few days, which made it even more confusing. You thought something was happening, then nothing. Just dead tissue and a wave of frustration. And maybe you blame the weather, or the rootstock, or just told yourself you weren't cut out for grafting. But here's the thing, it wasn't bad luck. It wasn't bad timing. Something specific went wrong, and that same something is going wrong for the majority of people who try to graft mango trees. You are not alone in this, and the fix is not complicated once you actually understand what's happening inside that union while you're waiting. Here is the simple explanation that changes everything. When you graft a mango, you're pressing 2 separate living plants together and asking them to fuse into one. That fusion doesn't happen across the whole cut surface. It happens in one very specific layer, a thin ring of living tissue that sits just beneath the bark on every single branch and stem of every tree. That layer is the bridge between the 2 plants. It's what sends signals, moves nutrients, and ultimately decides whether your graft lives or dies. If that layer doesn't make contact between your scion, the piece you want to grow, and your rootstock, the rooted plant in the ground, nothing else you do matters. The wrap won't save it. The humidity won't save it. The perfect cut won't save it. No contact in that layer means no graft, period. And here's what most people don't realize. That layer is incredibly thin. We're talking about something you can barely see, which means even a tiny misalignment, even being slightly off when you press the 2 pieces together, is enough to kill the whole thing. Every single step in good grafting technique exists for one reason, to make sure that layer connects and stays connected long enough to bond. Keep that in mind as we go through each step, and everything will make perfect sense. Let's go through exactly what to do, step by step, starting from the very beginning. The first step is timing your graft to match the tree's natural cycle, and this alone will immediately improve your results. Mango trees are not ready to graft year-round. They go through growth phases and rest phases, and the difference between grafting during an active phase versus a slow phase is enormous. During an active growth phase, that thin living layer we talked about is full of moisture, full of energy, and actively looking to grow. During a rest phase, it's dry and sluggish and barely alive. In most parts of the United States, Florida, California, Texas, Hawaii, the best grafting window falls in late spring to early summer. Think late April through June. But instead of going strictly by calendar, learn to read your tree. When the tips of the branches are pushing out fresh new growth, tender new leaves unfurling, green shoots extending, that is your signal. The tree is awake. The living layer is active. That is your grafting window. If you're not seeing active new growth, wait. Trying to graft a tree that's resting is like trying to wake someone up in the middle of deep sleep. The timing is the foundation of everything else. The second step is selecting the right scion wood, and this is where a huge number of grafts fail before the knife ever touches the tree. Not all branches are suitable for grafting, even from a great donor tree. The wood you choose needs to be in a very specific state. It should come from a branch that recently finished a round of fresh growth. That means it's no longer soft and floppy. It has some firmness to it when you handle it. But it also shouldn't be old, thick, and deeply woody. What you're looking for is something in between, firm but not rigid. The color will usually have settled from bright fresh green to a slightly darker, more muted tone. The buds along the stem will be visible and defined. When you find a branch like that, that's your scion. Cut it cleanly from the donor tree using a sharp blade. The moment it's cut, wrap the cut end in a slightly damp paper towel right away. Moisture loss starts immediately, and even a few minutes of exposure to open air can begin drying out the living tissue you need to be alive and ready to bond. If you're grafting the same day, keep it wrapped until the moment you need it. If you need to store it, we'll cover that in the pro tip section. The third step is getting your blade truly sharp, and I want to spend a moment here because most people genuinely underestimate how much this matters. A sharp blade doesn't just make a cleaner cut, it protects the living cells along the cut surface. When your blade is dull, it doesn't slice, it crushes and drags. The cells along that thin living layer get destroyed in the process. They can't participate in bonding because they're already damaged. You then press two damaged surfaces together and wonder why nothing grows. Before you graft anything, test your blade by running it lightly across a piece of plain white paper. A sharp blade glides through without any pulling or tearing. If you feel even the slightest resistance or see a rough edge on the paper, sharpen or replace the blade. This is not a step you can compromise on. And right after sharpening, wipe the blade down thoroughly with rubbing alcohol and let it air dry for just a few seconds before you cut. The garden carries bacteria and fungi on every surface, tools, soil, even your hands, and introducing those into an open graft union can start an infection that silently kills the bond before it ever forms. Sharp blade, clean blade, every single time. The fourth step is making the actual cut, and the most important thing I can tell you here is to commit to one smooth motion. A lot of first-time grafters approach the cut hesitantly, which causes them to slow down mid-stroke or adjust partway through. That creates a slightly uneven surface, maybe a tiny ridge, a small drag mark, a surface that isn't perfectly flat. And when you press an uneven surface against another surface, you get gaps. Gaps mean parts of the living layer aren't touching. Parts that aren't touching don't bond. So when you go to make your cut, position your blade, take a breath, and move through it in one confident, smooth stroke from start to finish. Look at the cut surface afterward. It should look almost glossy. Smooth and consistent all the way across. That glossy surface is what you're aiming for, because that's the surface that will press evenly against the other piece and allow complete contact across the living layer. One more thing, once you've made your cut, don't touch the cut surface with your fingers. Natural oils from your skin can interfere with bonding. Handle everything by the bark, by the stem, by anywhere except the fresh cut surface. The fifth step is aligning the living layer, and this is the moment that determines everything. When you look at the cut surface of your scion and your rootstock, you'll notice the hard pale center of the wood, and then right at the outer edge, there's a very thin ring, slightly different in color, sometimes a bit greener or more translucent than the rest. That ring is what you need to connect. Your entire goal when placing the scion onto the rootstock is to line up that ring on both pieces so they're pressing against each other. If the scion is a different size than the rootstock, which is common, don't try to center it. Shift it toward one edge so the ring lines up on at least one side. One side in perfect contact is far more effective than both sides slightly off. Once you've placed it, hold it steady. Don't rotate it. Don't adjust it back and forth trying to find a better position. Commit to the placement and go straight to wrapping without letting anything shift. The sixth step is wrapping, and you need to move from alignment to wrapping without any unnecessary pause. Every second that those cut surfaces sit open is a second of moisture leaving the tissue. Keep your grafting tape or parafilm right next to you before you start so you can grab it immediately. Begin your wrap below the union, below the point where the two pieces meet, and spiral upward with firm, overlapping loops. Each loop should overlap the one before it by about half. The pressure should feel secure. The scion should feel completely locked in place with no ability to wiggle, twist, or shift. Work all the way up past the union and cover it completely. Don't leave any part of the joined area exposed. Once the union is wrapped, if you're in a warm or dry climate, place a small clear plastic bag loosely over the scion and tie it below the union. This creates a small humid environment that keeps the scion from dehydrating while it waits for the bond to form. Leave a small gap at the top so the bag isn't smothering the buds, but make sure the interior stays visibly humid. This one simple addition can dramatically improve your results in hot or dry conditions. The seventh step is placement and complete hands-off patience. After grafting, move your plant to a location with bright but indirect light. You want the plant to have enough light to stay healthy, but you don't want harsh, direct afternoon sun beating down on a scion that has no roots and no way to cool or hydrate itself. Morning sun with afternoon shade is ideal. Keep the soil evenly moist, not soaking wet, not bone dry. Wet and soggy soil invites root rot, which can kill the rootstock and take your graft with it. Dry soil means the rootstock can't supply what little moisture and energy the union needs. Even inconsistent moisture is the goal. And now the hardest part, do not touch it for 3 weeks. No peeking, no unwrapping to check, no adjusting the bag or nudging the scion. The living tissue forming inside that union is microscopic and fragile. Even the smallest movement during those first weeks can tear apart connections that were just starting to grow. Set a reminder on your phone for 3 weeks from today, then walk away. After 3 weeks, look for swelling buds, green tips pushing through, new growth extending from the scion. That is what success looks like. If you see that, your graft has taken. Now let's talk about the common mistakes, because even growers who understand the steps often fall into these traps without realizing it. The first and most damaging mistake is grafting onto rootstock that's too young. Beginners often start with seedlings that are only a few months old. Those plants don't have enough root mass or stored energy to push the healing process forward. Your rootstock needs to be at least a full year old, with a stem that's about as thick as a pencil or slightly wider at the grafting point. The more mature and vigorous the rootstock, the more fuel it has to drive the union formation. The second big mistake is being too gentle with the wrap. People worry about hurting the graft, so they wrap loosely, thinking they're being kind to the plant. But a loose wrap is one of the fastest ways to kill a graft. If the scion can shift, even a tiny amount, the microscopic connections forming in the union get broken. Wrap it firmly. Snug. The plant will be fine. Loose wraps are not. The third mistake is using contaminated tools without thinking about it. You use your grafting knife on one plant, then move to the next without cleaning it. You've just transferred whatever was on the first plant, bacteria, fungal spores, sap from a diseased branch, directly into the open tissue of the next graft. Wipe your blade with alcohol between every single graft. It takes 10 seconds. It saves entire batches. The fourth mistake is grafting with wood that's already stressed or dehydrated. If the scion wood was cut days ago and just left out, or if it came through the mail and spent time in a hot delivery truck, the living layer inside may already be too dry to bond effectively. Always use the freshest possible scion wood. If you must store it, do it properly. Always check the cut end of stored scion wood before grafting. It should still look green and moist inside, not brown or dry. The fifth mistake is the most emotionally understandable one, unwrapping too early. At day 10 or 12, curiosity wins. You just want to check. So you loosen the tape, take a look, and carefully rewrap it. Except you didn't rewrap it in exactly the same position. The scion shifted a millimeter. That's enough. Grafts that were forming successfully have been killed this way more times than anyone wants to admit. 3 weeks. No exceptions. If you absolutely cannot resist, look at the scion from the outside. If the buds look plump and are holding color, things are going well. You don't need to unwrap to check. Here is your bonus pro tip, and this one is genuinely used by experienced grafters who've built high success rates over many seasons. It's called the double wrap method, and it's especially effective for mango grafts in hot or unpredictable weather. After you do your first wrap with grafting tape or parafilm, add a second layer of protection on top using a strip of aluminum foil, dull side out. Wrap it loosely over the grafting tape, not tight, just covering it. The foil reflects sunlight and dramatically reduces heat buildup at the union. Most people don't realize how much heat accumulates at a dark wrapped grafting union sitting in direct or partial sun. That heat dries out the tissue faster than almost anything else. It can raise the temperature at the union point by 10 or even 15 degrees above the surrounding air temperature. That extra heat is silently cooking the living layer and preventing bonding. The foil wrap eliminates that problem almost entirely. After 3 weeks, remove both layers and check for results. Growers who've added this step in hot climates report noticeably higher take rates with no other changes to their technique. It's simple, it's cheap, and almost nobody in basic grafting guides ever mentions it. Here's something else the experienced growers do that sets them apart from beginners in a fundamental way. They don't graft once and wait. They graft in rounds. They'll do 4 or 5 grafts in one session. Keep simple notes on each one. The scion variety, the rootstock age, the date, the weather conditions, and then compare results at the 3-week mark. Over time, patterns emerge. Certain scion wood performs better. Certain rootstock plants take grafts more readily. Certain weather windows produce higher success rates. This kind of simple observation-based learning compounds fast. After 3 or 4 rounds of grafting with notes, you know your trees, you know your conditions, and you stop guessing. The growers with 85 and 90% success rates aren't necessarily more skilled in their hands. They're more systematic in their thinking. They treat every session as information, not just an attempt. Let's land this. Most mango grafts fail for the same reason. The thin living layer inside the union doesn't make contact, or it makes contact and then gets disturbed before it can bond. Everything we covered today is about solving that one problem from every angle. Get your timing right by grafting during active growth. Choose semi-hardened scion wood that's fresh and properly stored. Use a sharp, clean blade and make one smooth cut. Line up that living layer carefully and then wrap it immediately and firmly. Give the plant shade, consistent moisture, and 3 full weeks without interference. Avoid young rootstock, loose wraps, dirty tools, dehydrated scion wood, and the temptation to check too early. Add the foil wrap if your climate runs hot, and graft in rounds so you're learning with every session. You now know more about why mango grafts fail than most backyard growers ever figure out. And that knowledge is the difference between a graveyard of failed attempts and a backyard full of healthy, productive mango trees growing exactly the varieties you want. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're growing your mangoes and what your biggest grafting struggle has been. I read every single comment and I want to help you figure out your specific situation. If this video gave you something useful, click the like button. It genuinely helps more growers find this content when they need it most. And if you want to keep going deeper into growing the best fruit trees in your neighborhood, subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified the moment our next video goes live. We're covering rootstock selection next, and that topic is going to change the way you think about your entire mango growing strategy from the ground up. Your next graft is going to take... Let's go.